Welcome, everybody. I know it's the week before Christmas, but it is great to see people on this. This is Event Marketing Redefined. I am your host and CEO of Rockway Exhibits, Matt Kleinrock. And today, super cool show. We have Debbi Kemp. She is the senior manager, and I love this, experience marketing. I love that title for Canon Medical Systems USA. Debbi, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. I want to go right into this because I think a lot of the questions that we've received on this show, a lot of the people come on this show, you have lived a lot of this event marketing, what I would say like strategic high level model that we have talked about for a long time. So I think your wealth of knowledge here, some incredible stuff you've put out there. So let's just jump into it. One of the things I want to ask you, and I don't want to start on a downer here, but I do want to know, like, what is your biggest struggle having done this for 20 plus years? I mean, what do you still struggle with?
Well, actually, I've done it a little bit longer than that, and I've done it in Europe and in here. And so by coming from Europe to America, it really was a different twist. And so the struggles that we had in Europe was really different from what the struggles are here in America. And I would say that I wouldn't say them struggles. I always see them as windows of opportunity to make a change.
Nice. Yeah.
So, I think I have two areas that are always on my mind. And the first one is probably general contractors and learning the cities and how to deal with them and getting to feel welcome in their cities. It's always difficult as trade show managers when we walk in with our booths and then they own the city. So that's always a challenge for us. And so it's really important to be gracious when we're talking to our contractors at first, just so that we know that we're on an even level. But then the other for me is really design and whether or not my design is going to fit in with the trade show that I've gone to at that moment or the event that I'm planning and whether or not the demographics are right for my booth design. So for me, those are my biggest struggles when I'm approaching a trade show or a big event. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Walk me through a little bit of that design piece, because we were talking about design before we got on here, right? And sort of how you're trying to fit the design into the event and essentially what that struggle looks like. Give me a little more on that.
So it's really important to understand the industry that you're in. So I'm in a medical environment and we have two areas that we really focus on, radiology and cardiology. These are really two different areas. Cardiologies are jet setters, Porsche-driven people, social media people. Radiology is a little bit more different and more staid and a little bit more not so much laid back, but a little bit more traditional. So when you're going into those two different markets, you're really trying to understand what is going to be the attraction for them on the booth? Is it going to be, or the event? Is it going to be something really dynamic, immersive, an experience, or is it going to be something very traditional, walk up to a workstation and play with a workstation? So when you're working with your designer, it's really important that you get that message across to your designer so then they can then go off and understand your market a little bit better.
Yeah, I think so. One thing that we talk a lot about is like what I heard you just say is you have to understand your audience. Like you need to know them inside and out, because essentially you're creating an experience that they're walking into. So whether you like that experience really doesn't matter. It's a matter of them hitting for them. And you saying that design leads the way on that makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, for me, it does, especially. And areas that can help you when you're trying to understand your audience as well is data. And sometimes there's a really good group called Evolio, Joe Fetterbush, who's an industry trend for everybody to use. And he's awesome. And his group really help with data and understanding your audience. So when they come on site and do the data collection for you, you'll be able to know by the end of the show exactly what your audience was looking for. And that helps when you're coming to your designs.
Yeah, that's an interesting point of actual like live action data on the show floor. And is there anything in there with like essentially like heat mapping or things of that nature to understand where people gravitate towards, where they don't, where the interaction is?
Yeah, we use a lot of that RFID. We use a lot of the heat mapping, of course, to understand what our audience are. So if we have a workstation that is very cool, very blue and not working for us, we know that that area is not really working and maybe we should think about doing something else. And sometimes we have been known to change that in the middle of a show to make it something more immersive or interactive for our audience.
Man, I love what you just said. That you said that you've actually changed it mid-show, like being able to adjust just trying to get people sometimes to adjust yearly or even show by show is a task. But you're saying you're adjusting sometimes mid-show based on information, what people like, what they don't like, and what's creating engagement. I love that. That's great.
Yeah. Information is king. So if you can get that information live, especially, it so helps you in driving your customers. So the next day, if something's very different on your booth, that's going to change and the buzz is going to go around the floor and people are going to go, hey, did you see they changed that?
Yeah,
so
it's really
we've
smart.
done that a lot.
You know what else I love? I love that you took my negative question and turned it super positive.
I am a very positive person. My mother calls me Tigger.
Good.
So
I love that. I love that. Half glass full. That's what we're looking for.
Absolutely.
So let's go super positive then. Give me biggest accomplishment as an event marketer and why.
My biggest accomplishment has to be Canon Cross America. And we can talk about that a little bit later on.
Yeah, we will.
But it came out of the blue. It was a thought that I thought of 8 years ago, and it just blew every record out of the books that we had here as a company. It blew our competition away. It blew everybody away, and everybody wants to do it. And I really think it's going to be a new way to do trade shows in the future.
Yes. Awesome. I'm glad you said that one because I was going to be a little worried if it wasn't it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we were talking about it today. Awesome. So, all right, let's go. Give me like 3 philosophies you have, principles you have on like foundations for having success with your event marketing. I would love to know that.
Well, there's so many. I mean, to put it down to 3, the most important is probably your deadlines. You always have to pay attention to your deadlines. I know that's kind of boring as a philosophy, but
it's true.
Deadlines will save you 50% of if you don't pay attention to your deadlines, put it in your Outlook, put it in your Google, put it everywhere, Post-it notes, whatever you need to do, but put a deadline and make sure you hit those deadlines, even overestimate, because deadlines will save you 50% of your budget. If you do it right, it'll save 50% of your budget. So I think deadlines are probably my first thing that I would always tell people. And that's always been my standard mandate. But the other thing I would say is, I think it's really important to not be afraid to ask associations. I never, ever want to be afraid to ask associations or other event people, why can't I do this? I don't like to hear people say, well, we've always done it because that's how it's always been done. That's the number one thing I hate to hear. If I hear that, I always tell people, go away, give me another answer. That's not good enough. So never be afraid to ask. Never be afraid to make a change, because it's really up to the younger generation coming up who have so much more faster skill sets than me at this moment in time. And they need to get out there and they need to really ask those questions and push the associations, because it's up to them to change our industry. It's really, they will change it. And if we can really get that into them, it's really important. And the other thing is, and I know this is a dirty word, but you got to pay attention to virtual and hybrid. I know it's a dirty word, but you gotta pay attention to it. A recent show that we just did in November had 37,000 people attend. Of the 37,000, over 4,500 were virtual. So that's a big number.
It's good. It's a good
That's
percent.
a big number that if you're not careful, you will miss it if you don't participate. So I'm not saying you have to go full throttle and do the full on virtual experience, but you have to have something to offer on a virtual hybrid. So really think about all the other areas, touch points that your customers are looking at, not just the single. Don't be so single, narrow driven on just your trade show and your event.
Those are good. The deadline one is big. I can tell you, if Liz, my director of account management, is listening, she would absolutely jump out of her seat if you said deadlines, because she's used to getting those deadlines out of everybody. Woo! The not afraid to ask the association is a super interesting one, what you just mentioned, because last live show I had on Jessica Sabila, and she is running the exhibitor advocacy program. And that was something that we talked about, which is how you work and speak with associations, meaning like you're paying to be there. You're the customer to the association. So I love that you said that, because I think not enough exhibitors, particularly smaller ones, right? The ones that are occupying smaller spaces, maybe don't feel as big and mighty. They need to speak up and they need to ask and push. I love that.
It doesn't matter your size. It doesn't matter. The association wants you there. They need you there. So you really will help drive whatever is new and upcoming. If I didn't ask for coat check sponsorship, it would have never happened long ago in one of my shows. So now it happens. So these things, if you don't push, these things will never happen.
Love it. The virtual and hybrid's an interesting piece because we, on our side of the space of it, we have seen it. We've seen it work. We've seen it not work. We've seen it used different ways. We've seen it be coined and phrased different things. And really, at the end of the day, to me, what I keep telling people is it's a sales and marketing tool. Absolutely. You know, this whole concept of saying, oh, virtual, I don't know. It didn't. No. It's a sales and marketing tool, and it's up to you. So for anybody listening, it is up to you to find companies that know how to create it and work with them to say, we need to build a sales and marketing tool for a very specific purpose, the same way you would do a trade show. Can you give us some insights? Because I know you've done virtual, hybrid, you've meshed them together during COVID as well as after and coming out. So give some advice, some tips, some hints, anything.
So virtual is so important, but if you're going to do virtual, you have to make it so easy and interactive. You don't want to make it super complicated, super big, because when we go to the internet, it's such a different world that we operate in now that it's an easy touch point. You don't want to drill down to 5 different levels to find out what you're looking for. And people lose attention after 5 seconds. So you have to make it super easy for them to use, and everything needs to be upfront. So make sure that, you have an easy access, go in, and it doesn't have to be rocket science. Don't try and give them the full encyclopedia of all of your products. I mean, just give them a highlight, because all you're trying to do is tease them enough so that they're going to call you and say, hey, I'm interested in this product. What can I do? When we were at our recent show in November in Chicago, we did virtual, but we did live streaming to our academy for all of our product as well, because we didn't bring our product to the show floor. So we wanted our customers to come in and go through the virtual port, and they could live stream, and they saw all of our product, got all of the demonstrations that they needed. And we hit 1/3 of our audience right through our virtual on the booth floor.
So interesting you said that, because I think one of the discussions, or at least the talking points I believe is true, is that you have to stop comparing virtual with face-to-face. Like, it has to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Yeah. They're different, right? They can serve different purposes with different intention, and you should be trying to capture in both. And you should be trying to, as you alluded to, talking about design, engage in each one. And you got to know what that engagement looks like. So the simplicity is key, because you can lose people really, really quickly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's good people don't really want to have a chat. People are always afraid when they're online. Oh, they can see me. Oh, I can see me. Nobody wants that. So just make it easily accessible for someone so that they can come in, and then they have a portal to go and ask questions if they want. But it's really important that people are able to easily access and see what your portfolio is, but not make it over designed is really my key.
Yeah, that's good. And I would encourage people with virtual and hybrid of combining it with live events is like either or, start somewhere. We built one for a company that wanted to use it as a recruiting tool for staff. I mean, so what's your purpose? What's your intention? What are you trying to accomplish? And you should be talking to somebody saying, can something virtual help me obtain that goal? Because you never know where it can take you, really.
Well, you're missing part of your audience if you don't participate in virtual, because virtual is here. It's not going away. So most shows will be hybrid nowadays, and virtual may consist of just a web page where you to go in and have a look. But as long as you have something for people to go to that is an alternative to your booth on site is really what you need to do, because every association now is going to offer you a hybrid of some kind.
Yeah, could be a nice touch point there. What keeps you up at night as an event manager? You knew I was going to ask this one.
Oh, labor talking on their phone when they're working on my booth. No, that's not a good one. That's not fair.
No, it's a good one.
I know. I love my labor, but sometimes I like really. I've managed small tabletops, events, all the way up to large 30,000 square foot booths, double deckers, everything. And it's really just making sure that you've communication. At the end of the day, if I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm crazy like everybody, and I write a piece of paper I have a piece of paper by my bed. Okay. And I wake up in the middle of the night and write everything down. Like most trade show managers, you either live on coffee and writing stuff down and post-it notes everywhere, or notes on your phone to remind you. But really, it's just communication. Did I tell that person this, or did I tell this? And it's a partnership and a communication. So communicating is the most important thing for me. That I just wake up in the middle of the night or I'm in the shower, and when you shampoo your head, that's when all your ideas come to your head, right?
Yeah. I'm still trying to come up with like a notepad for the shower because
totally. Because that would be it. Yep. That's the dial.
I know it.
So communication.
So that's a great answer. How do you, as what I would call like you're orchestrating, right? You're creating and orchestrating, and you have a lot of vendors and partners and people that you're working with to pull this whole thing off, right?
Right.
How do you like to be communicated with? What makes you feel at ease? What helps that process as the person running the show?
So I'm really a loyal person. So the people that I work with know me really well, and really just pick up the phone, communicate with me. I'm not, texts are nice, but pick up the phone, communicate with me, I'm a real visual person. So when I work with my designer, half the time I'm at a coffee shop, I'll draw it on a piece of paper or a napkin and send a picture of it and send it to him. And it's just, I think really it's just picking up the phone, talking to me, giving me a concept. Don't send me an email and say, hey, what do you think of this idea? Give me it. I'm real of a visual person. I really want to see it. So if you got an idea, give me a visual.
Yeah. So doing something visual, constant communication, being upfront, expectations being set, things of that nature.
That's very important for me. Most people, when we have big booths, we meet every week and we talk and everybody gathers together. And then right before we head out to the big show, we all gather in a room, we put the floor plan in place, and we all communicate what everybody's needs are. So that's really important. Nowadays, you can't so much do that because of travel restrictions or budgets or whatever. So Zoom, Teams meetings helps as well. So to go through that. So it's really important that you just communicate everything and every level and every step. Just start from the beginning.
What I like what you said there is essentially how you are congregating everybody in the sense there's a lot of moving pieces. You know what I mean? So whether you're running just a 20 by 20, but for somebody on this call, that $100,000 20 by 20 in New Orleans might be the biggest show of their life. Right. And I think you're bringing everybody together and you're kind of the point person and you're making sure, hey, are we on the same page? Do you have questions? I think that's important for people listening who are doing this work, is a sense that you have to view yourself that way and you have to be the one making that effort and doing it.
Yeah, you have to take control and manage that. Nobody knows your company better than you. Even if it's a tabletop, you can do so much with the tabletop, with a 10 by 10, with a linear. There's so much design and so much different ways that you can go and direct. And the people that touch that, I mean, just a small booth there's like 4 different vendors that you're going to have to deal with minimum. So just communicate, definitely.
Like that. It's good. Let's jump into RSNA this year. Right. You, for anybody who doesn't know, it is the Radiology Society of North America. Debbie had mentioned earlier that it is 2 pieces of their audience. One's radiology, one's cardiology. Right. So I thought an interesting thing that you said that I think you should expand on is you wrote in a post on LinkedIn. It's when I saw the images of this booth and all of that. You wrote, create experience that is so inviting and innovative that it gives you instant brand memory, is what you wrote. Expand on that for me, because I really like what I think you're trying to say there and what you are saying there.
So we went to RSNA and we knew that we weren't going to fly a lighting rig in the air, which was really important. So I needed to come up with a different idea for the ground, and we weren't bringing large equipment. So I wanted to build an experience that was like Vegas. And if anybody knows RSNA, it's the largest medical trade show in all of America, North America. So in its heyday, before COVID, pre-COVID, it would get close to 65,000 people in attendance. So it's working its way back up, but it is very traditional people, very traditional medical people. So it's not, I wouldn't say fast paced, but they're just very traditional radiologists. And so I wanted to build something that was like you were coming to Vegas. You would not want to look away. And I went for the old adage of, you have 3 seconds to capture somebody when they walk by your booth. First second is when they walk by, second second is when they step on your booth or step away from your booth, and third second is when they engage or choose not to engage. And we're really striving to make it so vibrant and so eye-catching that it was the first thing you would see when you walked into the hall. And we were lucky enough to be able to pick that spot and navigate it right to the front and make sure that everything was on the ground at eye level, so that as soon as you came in, there was movement and your eye was certainly catch. And I guarantee you, everybody who walked into the hall walked onto that booth.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Again, you're going back to knowing your audience, and you're saying, and you're kind of betting on being a little untraditional in a traditional setting, which I think is cool. And then what else that makes me think about is, a while back, I had on somebody, we were talking about experiential. And one of the things that keeps coming up when we talk about experiential are the senses, right? So you're using the sense in this case of what you mentioned, which is sight. You want a little bit of surprise. You want a little bit of grab. You want to be like, oh, wow, I'm going to get your attention instantly as soon as you walk on that floor.
Absolutely. We had no product this year. We chose not to do the buttonology theory. So we chose to do the live streaming to our product. So I knew I needed to do something different. So if I made it vibrant and busy, and you saw it from a distance and it actually pulled you in. So the design the video was built by Avery Productions in New York, and she built it so that you were pulled in, so that the video actually pulled you in, so that you walked into the booth without even knowing. So you walked in thinking, wow, what's going on over there? I need to go see it. It wasn't like anything you'd ever seen before at any medical trade show.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And if anybody listening wants to go see, you can go to Debbi's LinkedIn and you can see a post. It's recent. It's within a month or so, I would say, right?
2 weeks, just about 2 weeks.
Yeah. So 2 weeks. Yeah, you can find her post and you can see what this trade show booth looks like. Has multiple pieces. It's very large, but there's good imagery there that you can get the gist of what we're talking about. Debbi, tell me about the curved walkway, right? With the ceiling structure, the LED walls, and that experience there. What was the idea behind that walkthrough?
Oh, good question. So everybody who does trade shows knows Chicago, and Chicago really, really struggled in getting flyers, electrical flyers in the air and good quality, because everybody left Chicago. So I knew before I went in that I wasn't going to be able to put anything in the air without being shorted on labor on the build. So, and that's a big build. So, you're looking at a really big build. So I chose to put everything on the ground. And if you do your research, you'll know that any time that you build a square corner or square on your booth, it's a detractor to your audience. Always build a curve, because the curve is always more inviting. You're going to get 30% more audience when you have a walk by. So my idea was to build a tunnel and a feel and something with movement. I needed to cover it because I wasn't doing any lighting, but I knew that I could shine lighting up onto the ceiling. It was all really easy. I did it without decorators. So that was a big thing for me. So I wanted to make sure that we built it, and each one was an individual LEDs that we built on from the ground up. So I didn't have to use flyers, and I could only use ground electricians. So it's really important when you understand in building your booth to understand all the different aspects of it. Because if you're like me, I'm a very hands-on person. So I go into the shop and I look at everything and make sure that it's built to my specifications. So it's really important that we pay attention to those little details, because the little details are what really helps to make it the bigger project more vibrant.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you understanding Chicago and the depths of what's gone on, right? And where you're at, making that decision to go ground level, per se, and then essentially, coming up with this concept. It was like, for me, it was very eye-catching. I felt like I wanted to walk through it, even if let's just say I did no business with Canon, or I wouldn't ever, I would go walk through it just to look in and experience and be like, wow. So then I thought to myself, okay, let's say that, maybe I do, or maybe that I would work with them, or that there is a conversation. Right. That's fully engaging.
My goal for every trade show that I do is to capture an audience that I've never ever touched before. If you can do that, then you've achieved your goal as a trade show manager. Because really, we go to meet and greet customers that we already know there. We go to meet and greet people that we know, but really it's to gain new business, gain new branding, let people know who we are and let them see something very different that maybe they haven't seen across the aisle. So to pull them into my booth, if they've never been there before, is a win for me.
I love what you just said on that, right? Because I think one of the things that we've talked about is sort of like the sales and marketing funnel, where a lot of trade show is bringing it into the top of the funnel, right? But also, and I would love your opinion on this now that I'm talking about it, is like, as you get into the middle bottom of the funnel, right? You obviously want to nurture and move those people through, and you can do that at trade shows, but it's primarily been adding them into the top of the funnel. So how do you do those two things, right? Because obviously you're saying, I mean, I am there to capture and I'm trying to bring people in the top of this funnel. So do you do anything for the middle bottom of the funnel, as you mentioned, you know, if it's offsite dinners or things of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the traditional part of our trade show that we can't get away from, because we know, especially after COVID, people wanted to mix with people. I mean, there were shows that were just vendors for a long time in the beginning, when it was just vendors who were happy to be back at shows. And
you're just glad to be there.
Yeah, I just happen to be out in public, you know, So, and I get it, but our customers do get it as well. But what we're finding is that customers who are now coming to trade shows are more qualified buyers, or the more key people that we're seeing, because the budgets have been taken away. So the people who are coming to your booth now are the people who are really the decision makers. They're not so much the come in for the dinners, meet some people, talk a little this and that. It's really key decision makers now, and we're finding more qualified people coming. So you really have to change your demographics on how you design your booth for those type of customers. It may be more meetings and more conference rooms, or it may be evening events, or it may be a cocktail event that you're designing. But you really need to focus on those type of customers that are coming now, because they're still coming, but not as many.
Yeah. And I think so what this makes me think of is Travis Stanton from Exhibitor. I had him on. And one of the things that him and I discussed was we, you know, he has more data than we do at Rockway, but from us talking to our customers, is the data that he has lines up with the sentiments that our customers tell us, which is that yes, there's less people, but there's more qualified people and there's better conversations. So I think
people are staying in the booth longer too, though. That's what's happening.
Well, you're getting better conversation, right? They're there, they're engaged. You lose the BS that has been there. And I think what's interesting to what you're saying is you're very focused on that engagement. You're like, why am I going to waste this? And I think that's super important for people to know, is that if you're going to get better buyers, don't waste it. Engage them. You know?
I mean, I'm not on board with silly games on the booth and things like that. Yeah, just to attract somebody like, you know, a cartoonist or something on the booth. You know, we work in the medical environment. So of course, you know, we take it a little bit more serious, but you still can do something inviting enough for new customers and keep your old customers, your current customers, not old, current customers in line. And so to get everybody on the booth and talk and mix and mingle, sometimes it's nice when you have a current customer talk to your new customers. And then that is just off the charts fantastic, because that works for you every time.
Yeah. I would say you have an advocate there, and they're in the same space.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What do you do? I saw when I was looking at the booth, there was one thing that grabbed my attention. I put a note here. You had one of your larger structures in this space at RSNA. You had a big graphic, and I loved, it said the Canon experience, and it was right in your face, right? And it was simple. You could have put so much garbage up there and fluttered this wall, and it just said the Canon experience. And so what I want to know is, how do you in your process create your messaging, your graphics, and tying this whole thing together to come up with a wall like that? That's simple.
It's so simple. It didn't say anything, did it? Except Canon experience, right?
I loved.
And so what are you going to remember? The Canon experience. There was nothing else that you needed to remember, because you knew that you were just about to enter into a Canon experience. I don't believe that you can't flood customers with lots of words and lots of messages on graphics, and you can't be very busy because your customer only has 3 seconds in their brain to really read it, remember it, and move on. They're not going to remember a whole paragraph or a big line. How often do you remember anybody's line when you walk by a trade show booth? You don't, or you don't even remember what they're trying to sell you at the end of the day. So make it simple, make it more graphic orientated so that it's more of a picture or an element of design. I chose to make an element of design. I made a waffle wall with some really cool lights that hung down. And so your eye was only drawn just to the words. There was nothing else for your eye to be drawn to. So it was simply just the words. And you thought, okay, cool. Experience as well is subliminal. So you're going to walk into the booth because you want to experience what's happening.
Yeah, it's really, I really like that because it caught my eye immediately just looking at pictures, and I look at trade show booths all day. Right. And I was like, okay, look at that. And it just drew me to it. How involved, you seem involved in that process just by what you told me, but are you working directly with a graphic designer on all spaces? How is that coming to life? I think some people on this call who are new to doing this, essentially, often we find sometimes event marketers lean too heavily on a graphic designer who may not have experience with what I would consider environment or trade show design.
Right.
How do you do it?
So you don't want to, so I basically for my booth, it doesn't matter if it's a linear booth or if it's going to be a large scale booth like my RSNA booth. I number each wall, and then I sit with the designer or my exhibit house team, and we talk about what the message is going to be, and if it's always going to be 1, 2, and 3. So I really only choose to put one message on a wall. If I have to go into 2 and 3, then for me it's a distraction. But sometimes we don't have a choice because our product marketing people, who it's their product, sometimes they're driving that message. So you have to find a way and a balance in between your team that is on your team and then with the graphic that you're doing. So sometimes it could be a word and a graphic, but I never really want to overpower the wall because the walls are at our eye levels. If their walls are higher, they're not going to read a big paragraph. They're not going to read a big slogan messaging. So you really want to keep it really simple, is really how it goes at the end of the day, because people are still walking. When they go by your booth, they just walk. And so they're trying to read and walk. And your purpose is really just to engage them enough to get them into the booth so that your sales team can then engage and do the drill down.
Yeah, it's a good breakdown for anybody listening to that's wondering how to do it. Next question on RSNA for you is, what sort of measurables did you have? What sort of goals were you looking to achieve? What were you tracking? It could be a combination of them, a few of each, but what were you looking to accomplish, watching, looking after?
So we have a few modalities on our booth. So different areas, different business groups that we work with. And our goal was to make sure that every area was engaged. So we didn't want to make sure that anybody was off on a satellite. So we wanted to make sure that every area was engaged, but that every area would follow into or butt up to the next one so that it was an easy flow. So we wanted somebody to go to one area and then easily be drawn into the next area. And it could have been a product tie-in between the two, but we also wanted to make sure that there was never an empty workstation and there was never an empty demo area. So it's really just about engagement, pulling people in and making sure that customers were met as soon as they came onto the booth. We went a very different direction this year, got rid of our reception and did a virtual reception kiosk. Just like you go to an airlines, you would go and check in. So you went to the kiosk and you checked in. And then whatever area, business unit you were interested in, that there was somebody there to help guide you to that area. So we really wanted it to feel dynamic. And a lot of movement. So for me, it was all about movement on the booth.
On that kiosk piece, I try to talk a lot with people about making changes and adjustments, as you and I discussed. And then if you're not measuring, or you're not exactly measuring, but looking to achieve something, you can't tinker it. You can't make it better. You can't continue to evolve. So how did that kiosk check-in work with the different areas? How did that go, losing your reception desk?
So, well, one, it saved us huge amounts of money. So it was a huge amount of money.
Nothing wrong with that. It's a positive.
I didn't have to bring a big counter and staff it with a bunch of people. So it was great. Yeah. but also you were able to connect with people from different countries. So we had different people from our countries on there.
Okay.
So you put the flags on there, and the people from the different countries were able to come up and press their flag. And then the person from Brazil would show up. So they was able to bring people over, communicate with everybody, but we were able to see that probably half of the audience that came to our booth went to the kiosk. And I had them dotted throughout the booth, not just in one section as well. When you do a reception, it's typically in one area on the hot corner. So I didn't want to waste my money on a hot corner reception. So we came up with the virtual kiosk idea. You could do it on your phone, or you could do it on a touch screen, anywhere on the booth. And so that way, nobody was afraid to go up. I didn't want to do the big Plex thing that you saw. You know, when you go up to a reception, they have the big Plex thing because of the COVID. Yeah. So we tried to move away from that, and we were able to engage with our customers on various levels. And it also added to our leads database as well. Nice.
That's great. Yeah. So it worked. And I think interesting is you can't take calculated risk if you're not calculating anything at all. Yeah. Right. So I just think that and I'm not going to go on a rant, but there's too many people not thinking through this stuff. And then they're wondering why they don't get results, but then they're like, oh, I want to try this. And it's like, well, why? Yeah. And they don't know. So if you're constantly tinking and toying, you can make these changes. And if one doesn't work, move on, learn why it didn't move. Yeah. But a lot of times you can really make some big changes.
Absolutely. Oh. I'm not afraid to try anything, but at the same time, you have to know you're going to make mistakes along the line. And that's okay. We're all human, you know?
Absolutely. And I love that tracking, what you're talking about, and kind of the evolution of the booth. What was your favorite part of RSNA and that trade show booth? Would you say? What are you most proud of?
The tunnel. The
tunnel, yeah, okay.
Spectacular. The tunnel was spectacular because you walked into the tunnel and you felt like you were in an experience. Mm-hmm. You didn't even know you were in an exhibit hall. You really felt like you were just in a movement, because each screen was run on watch out. And so the movement throughout the whole tunnel was a movement that just continued on and pulled you in deeper into the booth, which took you down to an end workstation that was just slammed busy.
That I like, where it comes out and it's super busy from one side to the other.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Very smart. Give some advice to somebody maybe working on their first largest trade show booth. Say they're fairly new to event marketing. They've done some small trade show stuff for their company, and say they get handed, their first island booth, $100,000 to $500,000 budget. And what kind of advice would you give them outside of some basics, but things that maybe you think they should be thinking about and they should be considering?
I think the most important thing is think outside your industry. Don't design to your industry. In my industry, it's medical, so everything is blue and white or very squared. So my favorite thing is to look at different shop front design windows, or go to CES, or go to different shows that are outside of my market and look at those different designs. And I love to go to Starbucks and see different designs and apply those designs somewhere within our booth that I know is going to be attractive and I know is going to be eye-catching, because if it's at a shop front window, you know that it's being designed specifically to catch your eye. So pay attention to the design of your booth, pay attention to what you're looking for and how you want to attract your customer, because design is everything. For me, it is key on your booth and which direction you're going to go. You don't want to build a box with lots of graphics on it. That just isn't going to attract anybody.
It's good advice. All right, let's get to the Canon Cross America Tour. It was really cool. I know it's your baby. I know it's your thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was like 50 to 60 stops across.
It was 50 stops. Yeah.
50 stops across the country. It was like an 18-wheeler mobile experience that was built out, and you stopped at hospitals, medical centers around the country. Is that correct? And parked out there?
Absolutely. So it was an idea I thought of a long time ago, but when we came out of COVID, what happened was that hospitals were short on staff and hospitals were short on budget, and they weren't sending anybody to trade shows. So it was really hard. How were we going to reach these people? They weren't even letting people into the hospitals to sell products. So This giant truck had a pop out, 18-wheeler, had a driver. I kitted it out as a small trade show. And so basically you could go in and visit every product area. It had a conference room in it for live streaming. You could sit and hold meetings in it. It was all self-contained with its own generator. So basically we asked our team to nominate their hospitals. I routed out all the nominations that won. We had over 180 nominations. So we routed it out through across America, and we hit over 50 stops. We increased our web traffic by over 50%. Our new opportunity that we discovered when we just pulled into the hospital, the front of the hospital, and people came out and they saw us at their lunch or their breaks or before work or after work, they would come in, and on average, they would spend 45 minutes to an hour inside the trailer talking to us. It was amazing. It was like hitting a home run, the Super Bowl. So customers could not get enough of us. We now are going to do it for next year in 2023. And we already have customers asking us, when can I have the trailer? Well, I want the trailer in front of my hospital, because nobody has any time anymore. And nobody has the budget to get on a plane and fly to a trade show. So it's an evolution of a trade show for me, in the sense that it's changing the way that we are addressing trade shows internally here, because the truck is getting more impact than our trade shows are getting. So I feel like we're having far more success with the truck than we ever would with our trade shows.
So first of all, it's awesome. And everything you're saying for me really, really lines up. And there's two thoughts I wrote down when I was just looking at this. And again, anybody that wants to see this mobile tour and this experience, you can go to Debbi's LinkedIn. It's awesome. It's very, very cool. One is, you got to go to where your customer is. You have to be in front of them. And it's it in its sense is an old school way of marketing. It's the same thing with sponsorships, and the reason that brands are at stadiums and put pop-ups, and they go to where you are and try to deliver you something convenient. So I think it's genius in a sense that it ties into trade shows, budget and time, right? If you're not going to send people, I'm going to go to you, and I'm going to give you maybe a better experience than I could in a room full of 60,000 people.
Absolutely.
Which is just great.
It's just, it was so, it took off so much that we just did not realize how successful it was going to be, because everybody tried to copy us or everything. And it's not a typical 18-wheeler in the sense of, in our industry, you have like an MR on the 18-wheeler and you pull it into the hospital. It was like an environment in itself.
Yep.
So it was like I built its own environment, the own materials and everything. It popped out, and it was an experience. You walked up, you checked in, you could check in online. We provided lunch for everybody who came to visit. It was, and we went to 50 stops, and we saw over 100 hospitals. So
cool.
It was fantastic.
Cool. I have a few questions on it. Specifically, is give me, you kind of already walked through like the purpose and the strategy of this, right? So give me a little bit about the marketing on it, right? Did you do pre-marketing? What were you, I mean, you must, but like, what were you doing to help market this and the movement of it and, the recognition of it?
So we built a campaign internally. We posted a website, and we started a social media program. And we loaded our sales team, because it was such a new idea. Our sales team at first, they struggled to get on board. They didn't understand the concept. And a lot of people don't understand the concept when we say, okay, we're going to bring our truck to your hospital and you can come out and visit us. And they're going, well, is it a CT? Is it an MR? No, it's just product demonstrations in your parking lot. Come out and visit us. And so we had to arm our salespeople and teach them how to sell it. And that first time, that was probably our biggest struggle, our biggest hurdle. Getting to the hospitals where they didn't understand it, but once people started to see pictures online and how successful it was,
they got it.
They kind of understood it, and they got on board. And then from there, the nominations really started to flow in, and people would then understand it. But it was really social media, posters in the hospitals, the salespeople working the hospital halls or the facility halls, and just talking to people and talking it up, really.
That's really, did you have any, so like that's pre being there. Did you have anything like post, like things that came from it or touch points after the fact, after you delivered them that experience?
Right. So people would come into the trailer. They got like you go to a concert and you get a VIP badge, a big plastic VIP placard. So everybody who came on got that with their name on it and a lanyard.
Nice.
And on it was a QR code that would take you back inside the truck. So when you left and you went back inside, you could show, somebody said, hey, what's that you got there? They would say, hey, have you seen the Canon truck? It's out in the parking lot. Or they have that QR code that they can always reference it. So they'll always be able to see it. And of course, we followed up with all of our customers who came in. It was such a success. We walked away with several hospitals with purchase orders in our hand. That never happens. Yeah.
That's so cool.
It was the best. Yeah.
I mean, I think I say it's cool that happened, but I also think I'm really not surprised, frankly, because essentially you're doing things differently. You are going to them. You are making it convenient. You are putting your chips in and saying, hey, like we're confident in what we do. We want to come to you and have this conversation. I think people really appreciate that. Give me anything that you were particularly measuring. Like I love what you said about website traffic, right? Because obviously that's a huge indicator when it comes to funnel in marketing, but what were you measuring that was really important to you on this tour?
When we first set out, we thought we would get a couple, we figured on average about 25 people a stop. You know, we weren't sure because nobody had really done this type of engagement with customers. It's mostly just a single product that's coming out, and it's a single product that is supposed to be a tool. So a CT CAT scanner or something. Very few people would bring a marketing tool of this size and this idea concept to a hospital. So again, that's why it was so hard to sell in the beginning. But when we did it, we tripled what we thought we were going to bring. So the most popular stop was Athens, Georgia. I think we had like 500 people come through the truck in one space of time. The line to get in was huge. And you thought, this is so successful. And so you know that by seeing the number of people that are coming, the amount of people that are engaging with you, the people that ask you to come back, bring it back. Can you stay another day? I mean, those are things. Our website traffic increased by 50%. Our new opportunities increased by 30%. Opportunities that we didn't even know existed. It opened the door for us. We went in and we conquered. We just took advantage of all of that. We got to meet people that we've never been able to meet before with the trailer because the trailer's there. And the best part for me was that we got to meet people who never get to go to trade shows. And so they got to walk into there and get a hands-on experience with a product that they never would get.
Whole new audience.
And those people, you know, one day are going to be the CEOs. They're going to run that hospital. They're going to run that. So getting in front of them is so important.
So I think that's super cool. And I think a lot of this that we're touching on and getting to in everything that you've done from pre-show to post-show to having a purpose to measuring things so you can make changes to, you touched on in the trade show about just knowing your audience, right? So knowing your audience is probably why you doubled down on doing this mobile tour. I mean, it says so much about what event marketing or truly is at its core.
Definitely. For me, it was really about movement and reaching new customers that I knew were not going to trade shows or were not able to go there, and seeing their faces. And we held classes around the ultrasound of 30 kids of who were future sonographers who were gonna eventually run a hospital. It was such a joy to see the excitement of people inside the trailer and loving every minute of it.
It's good. I think what's interesting is kind of what I want to roll into here towards, we're not totally at the end yet, but towards the end here is a transition in talking about, you mentioned earlier on about the younger generation changing the way we do, trade show stuff.
Absolutely,
but I think essentially that's what you're just telling me is that, hey, and I talk about the value of trade shows a lot. What is the value of a trade show in 2022 is very different than the value of a trade show in 2007. It just is. It's impossible for it not to be. So you have to recognize it. And so touch on that a little bit. You and I talked about that trade shows need to evolve. The opportunities around them are evolving. And, you had mentioned that younger generation. What do you think needs to change? Where do you see things going?
long ago, I would say, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, that's not really long, but 10, 15 years ago, the Harvard Journals did a report and said that what CEOs see as a value for trade shows is just that meet and greet of people. It's a waste of money, they said, putting up big pop-ups, but really, it was really that meet and greet and sort of talking to people. And it wasn't really about discovering new products. And for me, the value of a trade show is you want to learn something new, you want to meet somebody, but you want to engage. And there are so many different ways that you can do this in a trade show environment. It doesn't have to be the traditional pop-up or the traditional 20 by 20 or the large trade show. You can do events. You can get out to customers. Trade shows are more than just the building, McCormick Place or Javits.
Yeah.
It's so much more. And our younger generation can make that happen. They can do experiential marketing is off the charts right now. With social media, it's such a great influence that you can build anything. And it doesn't have to be just 20 by 20. It can be anything that you can envision and put it on a truck, put it on a flatbed, drive it around the country, put it in front of the convention center if you want, park your trailer in front of it, park your space in front of it. This year at my largest show, RSNA Chicago, we negotiated and built a brand new space never envisioned by RSNA before. And we put it outside and we engaged with people outside and made it more of an engagement with people. So you can push the associations, you can push join a mentor group, be different, change, be bold, and make that change, because it's really up to that generation to make those changes.
Yeah, I think so much of that is really good advice, especially for people younger getting into this or even doing it who feel a little bit stuck. I think too oftentimes people get thrown the trade show program at their company and they end up just folding in, doing the same thing over and over again because CEOs and leadership just view it as a meet and greet and shake hands. And as long as the booth looks decent. But what I love about everything we've talked about so far today is that it's really showing people at a high level for a big brand and someone that's been doing it for a long time that event marketing, face-to-face marketing, experiential marketing, whatever you want to call it, is really, it all boils down to like the intention, the purpose, the strategy, and going to go get results and building the brand and customers and finding it. So showing up to a trade show just to show up to do a meet and greet, frankly, it's stupid. It's just stupid. And too many people do it. And it's like, hey, put the money somewhere else or start doing it the right way. Start trying to do it the right way. And it's so great. Be amazed how much results they'd go find potentially.
It's so important. I mean, your point is so important. I want people to understand that it is so different than what it used to be. And I want everybody to make a change. I'm so excited that we're having this conversation because the change is here. And now I'm ready for it to happen because it's not about meet and greet. It's not about taking a customer to dinner. It's really different now.
And I think the flip side of the coin of what I just said, because I think I have a good holistic view of this, is that I am not deterring people from going to trade shows, and we are not deterring them at all. What we're saying is, it's what you said earlier, the buyers are better. The opportunity is there. So if you're going to go to a trade show, do it right, engage, measure, know what you're doing. And then essentially you'll learn if it's a bad show, if it's just not good for you. And then you can say, okay, I'm going to take this $250,000. I'm going to go to the CEO or the CMO or whoever and say, hey, let's go try a road show. Hey, let's go try this. And I think it's out there for the taking per se.
Absolutely agree.
You young event marketers out there, or anybody stuck, or anybody, old event marketers, anybody, just, get thinking a little bit differently. What do you feel outside of maybe changes and shifts in going into mobile? What other opportunities are there out there? Like there's micro events, there's off-site things that people do, virtual and hybrid mixing together. Anything else that you guys have tried? Anything else you're seeing trends with? Pop-ups, activations, anything like that?
I like the pop-ups and activation areas because we're going right to the customer. So and you shouldn't just go to a customer that you're comfortable with. Go outside your comfort zone. Go somewhere else that maybe you're not used to going. We're a medical company, and we recently did advertising in a golf magazine. I mean, what do doctors do? They golf. right?
off,
so yeah, and we got a traction on it. So
Mm.
our advertising team were off the charts fantastic on that.
So think outside the box would be a good way of describing it.
Yeah.
And it really, would you agree in the sense that I think sometimes the word marketing gets removed and it needs to be put back in? It is. And that's what I said earlier. I love your title, right? With the senior manager experience marketing, because at the end of the day, it is marketing and it has to be treated as marketing. Too many people out there, if you're working for a company that doesn't want to treat trade shows as marketing, you need to fight to have it treated as marketing, and you need to bring them a case in the sense of it needing to be treated. So I think mostly a ton of stuff we talked about today is saying these are marketing basics. We're just putting them towards face-to-face. I mean, everything you've discussed today essentially is.
Marketing is key in everything you do. When you tell your spouse what you're having for dinner, that's marketing. Okay.
To a degree, yeah.
There's everything we do in life when we're trying to sell something, that's marketing. And every touch point you have when it comes to marketing is important.
Yeah. No, it really is. All right. I usually try to keep this to an hour. Honestly, I feel like we just keep going, and I ask you a ton more about the Cross America Tour, but I would like to, keep it here. Give me advice to your younger self getting into event marketing.
Ooh, good question. So I would, one, join a mentor group or join an existing group of some kind that can, one, give you advice. You can bounce ideas around, because often in trade show world, we're in a silo and we're just running, meeting deadlines, and we don't talk to each other enough. So join a group, join a mentor group. I mean, a great idea for you, Matt. Start a different blog that's just a mentor page, you know? So, and then get all the people on there, and you can have, so that you can bounce ideas on, get ideas, things like that. Be bold, be different. Don't be square. Push the envelope and search out the unique, exchange ideas. Really let your voice be heard, because your leadership will love you more for it if your voice is heard. I'm sure my leadership are sick of me because I'm constantly giving new ideas and crazy ideas. One year I did a park at a trade show just because I wanted to do something different. You just got to try. You got to try for the different, because that's why we are in this world.
I agree. That's a philosophy I agree with you on there. I think the mentor thing that you said is really good, because we've had this come up in our show a few times where people have asked, like, okay, where do I find a mentor for this? And I think part of what we're trying to do here is create a little bit of community of event marketers to say, hey, show up every other Wednesday at 2:00, listen to the podcast, you know what I mean? And see, are there people here that they can reach out to? Because it's hard to find a mentor of a person that does specifically what you would do in this space. It's not easy to find, but it's a necessity to find somebody, I think.
And that person can help you in various ways. There are so many of us out there that are happy to help, or we'd love to hear what you have from a different version. So we'd love to bounce ideas off of people. That is my favorite thing to do, is bounce ideas. Yeah.
Actually, Phil Gorski just said, "Hi, Debbie, I sent you a LinkedIn connection request," which is awesome. I think that's really cool. Like, if you're listening to somebody on here to connect, follow Debbie, watch her stuff. And, I think that's really a big piece of what we're doing. When you said be bold and be different, and then you said about, search out the unique, I think for event marketers, that's another great piece of advice. And you said about pushing on the executives a little bit.
Yes.
And what I truly love about that is we have pushed this narrative of saying, stop just running the trade show the way it's always been run. Start asking questions.
Yes.
Why are we there? Who are we talking to? Where is sales, right? What are they doing in this process? Are they involved in this process? Is there, start pushing back, because I think, and again, I don't work I'm not in that role, right? So I can't speak for it, but I would think leadership, a youngish person or a new person, whatever, that is working in this role, asking these questions, like, that's a path to Promotion Town for me. I'm looking for someone asking those questions.
You want the dynamic person who's going to ask those questions. It's going to push that. Every association, every trade show should have a small panelist, a group of people, and it could be the largest to the smallest. And it shouldn't be a bitch fest. It should be really about what's new and what can we change.
It's like a counsel. It's just a perfect counsel to be able to
Absolutely.
evolve things as they go. Debbi, you were awesome. Wealth of knowledge, bunch of information. I took a ton of notes. I hope we had great attendance for the full hour, people hanging around. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being on. I appreciate you being open and talking about the stuff that you've worked on and all of this, we'll call it experience marketing, because that's truly what it is.
Yep.
Yeah. Everybody, thanks for being here. Debbi, super fun. Thank you so much for being here.
Awesome.
Yes.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Everybody, that's a wrap. Thanks for showing up, and we will see you in 2 weeks.